This is a critical thinking session that we're going to look at today. And we're going to use our wrap-up of the higher order complex experimental designs that we looked at in order to engage in some critical thinking, a very important thing to remember when you're looking at quasi-independent variables. So specifically, we're going to revisit for the last time, one last time, the study on scholarship awards and attractiveness. So we've analyzed that one. We've taken a look at the entire story. We took a look at the interaction. And what we found was that there was an effect of attractiveness on who won scholarships. However, that effect interacted not just on how attractive an individual was, but also on whether the applications were from a male or whether they were from a female, and also whether the person judging the applications was a male or if they were a female. We needed to have all that information. And as we just recalled, this was the results where males judging males had this kind of pseudo flat inverted U effect, where males judging females had this classic halo effect going on right here, where more scholarships were given to the highly attractive and less scholarships given to the unattractive females. For females judging males, kind of the same halo effect going on. It's just more muted once you get past that middle attractiveness. And then this was the surprising result for females judging females, huge inverted U effect, where the most scholarships were given to the middle attractive females, and then by far the least out of the entire experiment were the highly attractive females being judged by the female judges. So what we're going to do today is we're going to focus and look at what caused this interaction. So the challenge here is that a quasi-independent variable brings with it many other possible factors. So we're going to flex our critical thinking muscles and try to figure out why this effect over here occurred, and see if those predictions make sense, see if those speculations make sense, and where they would point the sort of next step in a study like this. So we're going to talk about interpreting quasi-independent variables for the remainder of this class today, because one of the big astounding findings in this study was, especially for female applicants, how different the responses of male applicants were and how different the responses of female applicants were. And intuitively, our minds naturally go to what's visible. And we say, when we see that females judge female applicants with that inverted U, and we see that males judge female applicants with that halo effect, we immediately jump to the conclusion in our minds that that's just because the way that men are. That's how men are programmed, that's what being a male means, and that's just the way that females are. That's the way that females are programmed, that's just the way that being female, that's what being female means. And that would be true if this was not a quasi-independent variable. So what we mean by quasi-independent variable is whether or not you can randomly assign the levels of the variable. If you can randomly assign the levels of a variable, that is a full independent variable. So for example, target sex, the applications that people were looking at, that is a pure, full independent variable. Because when somebody walks through the lab, I can flip my coin and randomly assign them, you're going to look at 3 male applicants, or I can flip my coin and randomly assign them, you're going to look at 3 female applicants. This is a full independent variable. This is a full independent variable because everybody got high, middle, and low, right? So they didn't have random assignment, but everybody experienced high, everybody experienced middle, and everybody experienced low levels of attractiveness. The one independent variable, though, that couldn't be randomly assigned was this one here, subject sex. So when a person walked through the lab, I couldn't flip a coin and make them male. right? According to a random flip. I couldn't make them female. I just had to know, are you male or are you female? And then the males were placed in the male group, the females were placed in the female group. So it was a systematic use of this, but I couldn't randomly assign it. And because you can't randomly assign it, there's potential baggage that comes along with this. So that a result like the one that we saw is not necessarily due to the fact that females are just like that, and it's not necessarily due to the fact that that's just the way that males are. It could be due to other factors. Now, before we go into the discussion of what those possible other factors might be, I just want to mention that there are some differences. There are some psychological behavioral differences that do seem to be because that's the way that males are, and they do seem to be that that's the way that females are. So another way of saying this is that there are some behavioral differences that seem to be genetic. So these are the 23 chromosomes that house all the DNA in a human being. And this right here is the sex chromosome. And if you have an X chromosome and you have a Y chromosome, you are genetically male. If you have two X chromosomes, then you are genetically female. And as it turns out, the difference in the missing code here actually has some profound behavioral differences. It makes a difference. We do differ on our behavior according to this kind of genetic code. So we'll go over some examples of behaviors that seem to be genetically programmed. That is, seem to be, that's the way that a genetic male is, and that's the way that a genetic female is. That's just the differences between the two, and it's not any sort of extraneous baggage that comes along with it. All right, so what are some of these things? Well, males have been shown, and this seems to be biologically defined, males are better at throwing things. So most of these can be tied back to or explained away in terms of evolutionary history. So back when we were all cave people, males tended to be the hunters, women tended to be the gatherers, and if males went out there and had their spear and threw it on a mastodon and it went nowhere, then that male did not bring home any food to his family, that male did not keep his family healthy, and all his little cave babies did not survive into adulthood to make more little cave babies for his pathetic genetics for throwing things to be propagated. The male that could throw things very far, throw that spear, kill that mastodon, brought a whole bunch of food back to his family. His family was nice and healthy. He had a ton of little cave babies. Those cave babies had more cave babies. Those cave babies had more cave babies. And that gene for being able to throw was selected for and propagated for. So as it turns out, because back in the caveman days, males did more of the hunting that required throwing things, you can actually see throwing things is, males are better at throwing things. Now, on this note, I feel obligated, because I'm seeing some stares, I feel obligated to say that this is average. All right, so this is in no way saying that the top female softball player can't throw faster than me. This is in no way saying that I could go and replace Jenny Finch, in some softball league or anything like that. But what it does say is that on average, males throw better than females. On average, females are better at place memory. So place memory is memory for where things are. So if I told everybody here to take a look around this room and study what is out here, and then we all went outside, and I said, which column, which row of chairs has a pink jacket on it? Well, the females in this class would tend to do better than the males in this class. Then that's place memory, and this again is tied to that hunter-gatherer way of lifestyle, that evolutionary pressures, because women were the gatherers, so you had to remember where the raspberry bushes were. You had to remember where the apple trees were, where the nuts were, where the water was. And the better your memory for that, the more little cave babies you had, that had more little cave babies, and it went on and on. Other things that seem to be genetically linked. Spatial rotation. Don't ask me why. Males are better at rotating things in their minds, rotating things in space. I'm not sure exactly why, but that just seems to be one of these things that just seems genetically programmed. Was there a question? No? All right, other things. Color perception. Women in general are better at color perception. This has to do with the fact that a lot of the code that is on a lot of the code for your rods and your cones, so the rods and cones in your retina, a lot of those are coded on your X and Y chromosomes. So if this is the male chromosomes and this is the female chromosomes, and this is where your rods and cones are programmed, genetically programmed, if something's wrong with your code, right? Let's say you had a little mutation. Let's say that your code screwed up. Well, if you're a male, that's it. You've lost that cone, and you're colorblind. If you're a female, and that code is messed up, well, then your other chromosome is like, don't worry, I got it. I still have a copy. I can make yourself a cone. So that's why if you take a look at the prevalence of colorblindness, it's way higher in males. And actually, interestingly, some females are actually super color perceivers. So one of the cones, your long cone, your red cone, actually has two versions of it. And what happens sometimes is that you'll get a female that has version A on one cone, on one X chromosome, and has version B on the other chromosome. And in her retina, she ends up having 4 cones. So it kind of looks like this. So the same way that you're supposed to have 3 cones, and if you're colorblind, you only have 2, and that's why you can't distinguish between that many colors. Well, going from 3 to 4 is going to let you distinguish even more colors. So it's even better color distinction than what a typical person can have. And historically, these were the women that were the sort of healing women in their tribe. They were they're almost like the magical women in their tribe, because they were the ones that could take a look at a pear tree, and everybody else just saw green pears, but they would take a look at it and say, that one will be ripe in a week, and that one is ripe right now. And people would look at them and say, how do you know they're all green? And they'll be like, well, that one's slightly greener than that one. And people would be like, I can't see it. And they'll be like, well, I can. And they would take a look at somebody and say, you're infected. You have a disease. And other people would say, how do you know? I look exactly like they do. And they'd say, no, you don't, because I got 4 cones and you don't. Yep.
So what about that? Because I know some guy, like I have a guy friend that only has certain colors he can't see. So what determines what colors they get mixed up or can't see, rather than like being completely colorblind? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep. So basically, what happens is your brain analyzes the pattern of activation when you're looking at colors, right? So pure colors will activate, this will be like red, this will be green, and this will be blue, right? So what typically happens is somebody that's colorblind will be missing one of these, right? And if they're colorblind and missing one of these, then when they're looking at something that's green, this cone is going to be sending a very strong signal to their brain, right? When they're looking at something blue, typically if they had this cone would be sending a very strong signal, and this one would be sending a somewhat strong signal, right? It would be sending a somewhat weaker signal than this one over here. And what your brain says, it says, oh, I got a really strong signal coming from the blue cone. I got a lesser signal coming from the green cone. I'm seeing this shade of blue. Now, if you take that away, then green has a maximal signal from the green cone. Blue has a maximal signal from the green cone, because your brain is still saying, oh, my green cones are responding the most. It must be green. And that's why you get things like blue-green color blindness. And that's why you'll never get like blue-red color blindness. I don't even know if that's a thing. I wouldn't think it is, but that's what happens with color blindness.
If it's
Now,
like red, brown.
if you lose that, then you don't see any color, because all you got is the one cone. You can see bright and dark. That's it. Yeah, so what was it you were saying about your friend?
It is like red, brown. Like shades of red and shades of brown.
Okay.
They look great at him. Like they can't see a difference.
He, I would have to.
Red, brown, and orange. Like those like weird warm colors.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what you're. That's exactly I'm having a hard time figuring this out, because where is orange and where is brown?
He literally only wears black for a reason.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you were a child and you were painting, and you had red, yellow, and blue, and you would say, "Oh, I want to do green," so you would mix yellow and blue, and you'd be like, "Oh, I want to do purple," and you mix red and blue. And then eventually you'd be like, I want to do brown. And you'd be like, what do I mix? Yeah, no, but that gives you gray, right? That gives you like it just sucks. But yeah, well, exactly, that's the thing. Like how much of each color is hard. That's why I'm having a hard time thinking, what cone is this guy missing? But he's missing something. Yeah, but if you can tell the difference between colors, at least at some level, even if it's just, well, I can tell this is red and this is green, right, or whatever it is. As long as he can tell some colors apart, then he's not missing. He's missing two.
He sees blue a lot.
Okay. So he would be missing two in that case. But anyways, notice he's a male, right? Nobody in this class is saying, "Oh yeah, my female friend." The color blindness that because I'm not saying that there aren't females that are colorblind, but they're much less likely to be colorblind. So females are better at color perception. All right, the last genetic difference, although I don't know if this one is genetic, and this is something to keep in mind. This is why we continue to do psychology. So all of these ones that I've shown so far, they all have a ton of data behind them that they're genetic. But this next one had a ton of data behind it that is genetic, but it might not be. And that is that males are better at dying. We're way better at death. And what I mean by this is that if you take a look at the average life expectancy, in the 70s, women expected to live to about 75 years old. That's from birth. So once you were born, you had a life expectancy going to 75. Males were only expected to live up until 67. And just a few years ago, that increased to 81 years for females because of increases in medicine. Guys have made it to 76. So a male in 2013 is basically doing as well as a female back in 1970. And it's even worse than that. So does anybody know what the conception rates are for males and females? So out of, for every 100 females that are conceived, how many males are conceived? It's not 100. It eventually becomes 50-50, but it's not 50-50. Does anybody know?
20.
It's 150 or to 180 males are conceived for every 100 females. What happens is because of that missing piece of genetic material, a lot of those babies die. A lot of those babies are stillborn or miscarriages. So if somebody has a miscarriage, probability is that they miscarried a male. Because out of those 180 males that are conceived, and those 100 females that are conceived, by the time they're born, it's like 110 to 100 in terms of males that actually make it to birth. By the time they're teenagers, it's 100 to 100. And from that point on, it's just more women than males throughout the entire rest of the lifespan. So, well, that's what I mean by like how many are conceived, right? How many males are conceived? It's 180 to every 100 females. So the reason that so this was a long time seen as genetic. The reason that I bring up that it might not be is because recent cultural studies, if you take a look at male life expectancy across the world and you take a look at female life expectancy across the world, and see for each country how long are males expected to live, how long are females expected to live. That's the data right there. So you can see just in about every single country, women are expected to live longer. In fact, it is every single country. There is not a country in the world where men are expected to live longer than females. But if it was genetic, like I said, our minds go there. If you were superior, right? If women were superior, then this gap shouldn't be different for different countries. So why is this country having women far outlive their males, whereas this country does not? They're on equal footing. Why is there different gaps between these? And the new research and the new ideas kind of suggest that it's not genetic, that males do not have to die off so soon after they're born. And this is my little PSA for International Men's Day, which is coming up in about 5 days. So there seems to be something cultural going on here that is driving or causing men to die a lot sooner. And the sooner we fix this life expectation gap, I think the better we'll be as a society.
Is that not like environmental? Like it's not including that, or like?
It's environmental stuff. It has to be environmental.
But women
Otherwise, this would be the same. This would be the same distance across the entire line.
Like, what is the country that's like right on the line?
Yeah, I know. I want to figure out what's that country.
What is the one that's
What's
like
that country?
exact?
First off, what are any of these countries where everybody's dying at 50, right? Like let's
You gotta think like.
at least get to 65 and stay back there.
Areas have a lot of illness, like being spread that don't have access to like medicine. and
Yeah.
stuff, like how
But well, let's think about that critically. Are they saving the medicine just for the women?
No,
Then why are there differences?
we have a better immune system.
Not necessarily.
Then
'cause
why are there
women have,
differences?
Sucks.
I know, but women have higher morbidity than males do, though.
What was that? They have higher morbidity?
Yes, we have lower health than males do. However, we live longer than males do.
Oh.
Our mortality is higher. Our morbidity is lower.
So what is morbidity, just so we're clear on this?
Basically, our overall health and
Okay.
and whatnot.
If you get sick, you're more likely to die. But if you
Yeah,
don't get sick, you live longer.
exactly. Yeah.
We
And
can handle more. We can push a baby. That's a
there's
lot.
that.
Well, again, on that note, and this is why, but this is kind of critical thinking skills that you need to develop. If the argument is that women can take more because they can push out a baby, what's going on with these women here?
That's
Are they
me.
unable to push out babies?
They're
Right?
infertile. They're infertile.
So we have a country here that's
Yeah.
so do that experiment, do that study.
Also, who's pushing out a baby at 55?
Well, no, these are life expectancies.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Women can die during birth too,
Yeah, no, they can.
but some don't.
Which again begs the question: why is it in every case they're outliving males?
Because we can make it.
And why is it that it's different for different ones?
I'm sorry,
you know?
like with reinvented here.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's another thing to bear in mind.
Can we see where like we are?
Oh, I don't remember what it is. No, actually, yeah, I'll let you guys know where you are. You are,
My man was 93.
you are, where did we go? You are right there. That's North
That's in
America.
2030.
Yeah. Oh, that's in 2013, yeah. I actually think this might go down for the first time in our history because I had just read articles about how millennials are actually less healthy than the previous generation at this point. So who knows?
It went down.
Who knows by 2025 this might go back to 67 and 75 for all.
No, it went down. In 2016, the female life expectancy is lower. It's 78.
Yeah. What happened to male life expectancy?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
Males is 78 as
Oh,
well.
okay.
No, it's not the same.
It says it.
Oh yeah?
That's
Yeah,
in
I think
America.
you're-
Yeah, in America.
Oh, okay.
In just America.
Wow.
Okay, so that's interesting that just in America we have the same life expectancy.
That's cool.
But like there's decimals. It was 78.98 for females, but it's 78.69 for males.
Well, decimals, I mean, that's
I didn't
a
know
couple
if
of
that
months.
actually did anything.
But that's cool.
We're the
So
one
wait,
on the line.
what were the numbers? 78?
78. Yeah.
Okay.
We're the one on the aim.
No, we're one of the ones over here.
78.
So probably like that one right there,
But this is
but we brought it down.
This is in 2016 though.
Okay.
Is this the 2013 one or no?
This is, I can't remember, no, this might be, I can't remember what year this was. Yep.
Are
Okay.
people living longer in Canada?
So we have, I know, what did I ever leave?
It's pretty out there.
I don't know, universal healthcare might have something to do with that. This might be a nice little thing, you know? But, yeah, so again, the question is if it was genetic, and that's the kind of one of the overarching points of this, if this result is because of this, how did the result ever get smaller, right? How did the gap ever decrease? Because if it's a genetic thing where men just live less than women, then we shouldn't be able to improve that. Anything that improves health should improve health across the board, but again, it's it doesn't occur. So anyways, let's go on. We got about 20 minutes left. So let's take a look now. So those were the things that were probably genetic. So those findings that we looked at were probably genetic differences that cause these behavioral outcomes. So when they did those quasi-independent studies, they were able to, through other means, come to the conclusion that, you know what, this seems to be genetic. That's where our mind kind of goes. And we saw it in this discussion. We see a result like this, and it's all of a sudden it has to be because women are like that. Women can do this. Women can push out babies. And that's where this kind of leads our mind. Whenever you look at quasi-independent variables, we tend to take a look at what's visible, female versus male. So what we want to do now is we want to say, in terms of critical thinking, because these were not randomly assigned, it could be that this difference we see here, it could be that difference is due to genetics, right? So it's possible. But it's also possible that it's due to other factors that are associated with being male and associated with being female in any society. So we'll engage our critical thinking right now, and we'll ask, what do we think caused this interaction? Can anybody think of reasons why this is the curve for females judging females, why this is the curve for males judging females, or any of the other curves, if you can explain why is there that difference between male judges and female judges?
I feel like how they're taught to act, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that like still kind of just goes back to like boys being boys, but like, or girls would be girls, but like, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what it goes back to, because you're getting there. Boys will be boys and girls will be girls carries with it two meanings. Number one, boys are genetically programmed to be boys. Girls are genetically programmed to be girls. The other thing is, boys have been taught to be boys, girls have been taught to be girls. And as we saw, there's part of it that says, here's your genetics, here's your behavior, right, as we saw previously. But there's a lot more that is like, here's how we're going to treat you, and because of that, here's your behaviors. So that's kind of what we're asking here. What about the way that women are treated in society, or viewed in society, or interact with society might have led to this curve, whereas males, the way that they interact with society led to this curve. I'll give you, why is it when females judge other females, we have this huge U-shape, whereas when males judge other males, we get a much smaller U-shape? So what's going on? What might be going on in any of these sort of interactions? Competition, how so?
Well, among women, especially if you're looking at woman to woman, it's a competition of resources.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find someone who's more attractive, your instinct is to want to maybe hoard the resources and not allow them to move forward?
Okay, so
Does that make sense?
yes, it does. So you're thinking that it's limited resources.
Yeah,
Right.
in a way.
Okay,
But
yeah.
how our mind may perceive it. So
Okay.
not in an overt way.
So the
But-
perception of limited resources.
Exactly, going
Okay.
back to the caveman
Yeah.
perception.
So that's an excellent example of what else might be going on here. That's a great example of what else other than male versus female could potentially explain this. So there have been a lot of lawsuits that have been brought up against universities because a lot of universities have instituted female-only scholarships. And the idea was that they were going to make up for the fact that the scholarship winners tended to be more male. So they wanted to have these opportunities just for females. They were brought to court under Title IX discrimination practices. But that's a nice indication that there is that idea that scholarships are a more scarce resource for females. Well, he doesn't think so. They're a scarcer resource for females than they are for males. So let's say that that's the case. And females are walking in there and they're like, oh, this is a scholarship, committee. So my scarcity mechanism is going off. Like this is something that there's not a lot of. And then they see the highly attractive candidate, and this effect of intergroup attractiveness, let's just say, mixes with the scarcity, right? So they say, you know what? There's an effect of attractiveness here, and it is getting exacerbated because I feel that opportunities for women are lower, right? As a woman, right? Females judging females. As a woman, I kind of feel like we don't have as many opportunities. So all of a sudden, the effect of attractiveness kicks in, and they say, no way am I giving this to the highly attractive individual. Notice that this speculation makes sense. It's supported by the data, because if males walk in there and they say, oh, this is a scholarship, and there's tons of scholarships, to go around, they shouldn't show this effect as much. And notice they don't, right? Importantly, they do show the effect, right? It's less, but notice males do give the medium attractive males more scholarships. They give less scholarships to the highly attractive males. So it could be that males are still feeling this threat from these attractive individuals in their own group, but it's not as effective because they don't perceive the scarcity as well. So a prediction that would come out from this is that if more scholarships are available to females, what should happen is this huge thing, this huge U-shaped curve should squeeze down, and it should look much more like this male curve. So if 20 years down the line, this study gets replicated, and at that point, women are receiving scholarships at the same rate as men are receiving scholarships, we should expect this curve to be the curve that's there for males and there for females as well. Importantly, note that this explanation has nothing to do with females are females and males are males. Females are programmed this way genetically, males are programmed this way genetically. It has to do with the fact that attractiveness affects both of them, but in this society, females have more scarcity for scholarships than males do, and that scarcity is what is going on here. So the quasi-independent variable of sex, male or female, is not really picking up a male or female difference. It's picking up a scarcity, no scarcity difference instead. All right, other speculations, other ideas? All right, does anybody, in terms of, in our society, in terms of the effect of attractiveness, in terms of the benefits of being attractive, do we think that women benefit more in our society from being attractive, or do we think that males benefit more in our society from being attractive? Sure.
Females.
Who says males benefit more? Who says females benefit more? All right, you got the females. I would have to say the females are right. I'll give you an anecdotal example, and after this, you can tell me if I've convinced you or not. All right. Where'd we go? Okay, here we go. That's Anna Kournikova. Does anybody know the history of tennis? Does anybody know who Anna Kournikova is? All right, so she was a professional tennis player. She was, I think, hit her peak sometime in the late 90s, early 2000s. But the highest she was ever ranked was 7th worldwide, right? So highly skilled. I'm not going to take anything away from her. Highly skilled. The highest she was ranked was 7th. She was hated amongst her competitors because she brought in, and she had endorsement contracts that were orders of magnitude greater than the number 1 ranked player. And they were much greater than the number 2 ranked player. So here was this number 7th ranked player who was getting millions of dollars more in endorsements than the top tennis players. And the reason for that was because she looked like this. So this physical attractiveness led to legions of fans, right? They even spelled it right. And it led to endorsements, right? Like this endorsement from, looks like a bra company, only the ball should bounce. So you would think in a celebrity endorsement, you would take a look at who's the top player, right? Who's the number 1 talent? Who's the best player? We want them to give our endorsements. That didn't happen. Her attractiveness allowed her to surpass. It gave her the benefit of surpassing all of those better players and making much more money than the number 1, the number 2, the number 3 ranked players. All right. That's Anna Kournikova. That's what happened with her. Does anybody know who this is? This is Wally Szczerbiak. Does anybody know who he's playing with? Okay, so he's an NBA player, and when he was drafted, they thought, so he was drafted, you can see here, he's drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves thought that he was going to be the cornerstone of their promotion. They thought that he was going to be this player that they could kind of promote their brand across. And as it turned out, he was a pretty good player. He wasn't LeBron James. He was a starter for a lot of his career, but he just, he wasn't a superstar. He was a very good player. He wasn't a superstar. One of the reasons that they thought that he would be a massive draw, a massive pull, was partly because he was a good player. He was, I would say, Anna Kournikova level in terms of skill. But really they liked him because this is what he looked like. He was a good-looking guy. He had the six-pack, he had the muscles, he's got that chiseled look, he's got everything. He didn't get any endorsements, right? The endorsements didn't come a-knocking on his door because he looked like this. So Anna Kournikova, tons of money because she looked like that. Same level player, no money. Even though, as in terms of attractiveness, highly, highly attractive. So I would argue in our society, women benefit much more from attractiveness. And that's why the makeup industry is driven by women. If guys benefited from being attractive, we would wear makeup too. If guys benefited more from being attractive, we would have a little bit more variety in our clothing to show off our best assets, right? Guys do not benefit in our culture as much from being attractive. Again, anecdotal, but I think very kind of indicative. So, on that note, I would say, females judging other females, males judging other males, we have a mechanism in our mind about fairness. It's a belief in a fair world is one of the kind of psychological principles. We believe the world should be fair, right? We believe that somehow things should even out. And if you know, because of the society that you live in, as a woman, if you have felt this, where you have been passed up for opportunities, for, you know, the better looking individual got the opportunities. If you were passed up because of your average attractiveness and somebody who was highly attractive, you know, got the promotion, if you felt that and you see somebody who's highly attractive, that unfair mechanism gets launched in your brain and you say, no way, not this time, right? The world has handed you way too much. You're extremely gorgeous, but you're not getting this scholarship. Not if I can help it. I'm going to make the world fair. For males don't feel that, right? As long as you're decent looking, right? As long as you're okay. And this bears that out, right? As long as you're okay. Look, even for women judging males, as long as you're okay, as long as you put some effort in, you can still be attractive. You can still gain the benefits. And males don't feel it as much. And because of that, there's no need to balance the fairness. When you see that highly attractive male, males don't feel like, well, this person's been handed everything. You know, everybody's been falling over themselves, you know, to help this attractive male individual. You don't feel that way, so that unfair mechanism doesn't get triggered, and we'd have those effects there. So this, once again, could be nothing more than the fact that women benefit more from attractiveness in our society than males do. Interestingly, if the current trends continue and this world becomes more visual, and as a result, males tend to care more and more and more about their appearance. So you have more fashion magazines, more fashion blogs dedicated to males every single day, more beauty regimens. We have companies coming out with products specifically for male beauty products. If that's the case and that trend continues, what we could expect is in 20 years, if we reran this study in 2039, when attractiveness is as beneficial to males as it is to females, what should happen is this curve here should still be there, but this curve will mirror this curve. So males looking at another male would say, you know what? I've watched all the beauty blogs and I've tried all the contouring with the eyebrow pencils, and I still can't get my cheekbones to look as defined as this guy. There's no way he's getting a scholarship. He's going down here, and we'll see this curve for males judging males. All right, any other speculations? We kind of ran out of time. We spent a lot of time deciding when men and women die. But any other kind of ideas about things that might be happening here? All right, so we'll wrap it up here, but importantly, hopefully this was able to drive home that point, that when you're dealing with a quasi-independent variable, and this will be my sort of wrap up for this, when you're dealing with a quasi-independent variable, as psychologists, as trained critical thinkers, we have to identify, yes, this is a quasi-independent variable, and then say to ourselves, one way to interpret it is to say it's the effect of the variable. Another way to interpret it is to say it's the baggage that comes with it. So when we see a result like this, our critical thinking mind should say, maybe, because females are genetically like this, males are genetically like this. Or maybe, scarcity versus non-scarcity. Or maybe, effective attractiveness versus no effective attractiveness. Or maybe there's a few others that we didn't have a chance to go to. But we need to start bringing in those possibilities, because when this result was first published and it got taken in by popular media, if you just looked at the comment section, the amount of hate being spewed at females because of this, and the amount of opinions that this is just the way that women are, was astounding, because that's where our mind goes. It goes to what's visible. It goes to these are female, these are males. So immediately it's gotta be because that's how women are, that's how males are. As psychologists and critical thinkers, we gotta take a step back and say, that's one possibility, but maybe scarcity versus non-scarcity. Maybe effectiveness of beauty versus no effectiveness of beauty. Maybe anything else that has to do with being a female in our society versus anything else that has to do with being a male in our society. And that is where we will end for today.